Hey, how about you, everybody? Welcome into this week's edition of the Auburn Live Recruiting Show. I'm your host, Jeffrey Lee, Senior Recruiting Editor for Auburn Live on 3. And I'm joined, as I always am, by Mr. Jhead, Mr. Keith Niebuhr. Fellas, how about you?
How about you, brother?
We are absent one of our usual guys. Cole Pinkston is taking the afternoon off. Taking a little much-needed, little what do you call it?
Little me time.
Yeah,
a little me time.
He got a Mama's Family bonanza on TV Land, so he's occupied, I think. For a few
Bonanza.
hours.
Nobody knows what bonanza is, Keith. Hey, listen, my phone keeps blowing up. It's blowing up now. Where can I buy a house? Who can I get to buy a house? I've got them, folks. Just please stop texting me. Call Jessica Andrus. Text Jessica Andrus with the Talents Group, 334-704-4442. 5-star realtor in the Auburn, Opelika, Lee County area. Fantastic seller. She's a 5-star selling agent, folks. Need something sold, or if you need her to find you something, give her a call, 334-704-4442. Jessica Andrus with the Talents Group. All right, folks, we are one day removed from the On-3 RPM day, the recruiting prediction day, which I thought was a lot funner. Is that the word? A lot more fun than I initially thought it would be. Yeah, I don't really like to make predictions unless I feel pretty damn good about it. And, you know, the more I got to think, and when we were pressed to it, I thought, I feel pretty damn good about these guys. Keith, did you have a problem?
No, not at all. And here's the thing. I mean, we're just, as of today, here's how we feel about the recruitments. Everybody on the board knows, and I'll say this, we have a fantastic board. They understand there's so many ebbs and flows in recruiting, okay? Some boards don't understand that. And so, they get that. They know that we're just saying, as of right now, hey, we like where things stand. But obviously, things are always subject to change in recruiting. But now, Jeffrey, I'm with you, and I know Jay has thoughts on this too, but also for us to have this algorithm, this On-3 recruiting machine algorithm, we need guys to put in picks.
Yes.
And for Walker White, you and I blew it, right? We blew it. We thought all along that Auburn had a great shot, and we kind of got tricked that last week into thinking it was maybe Clemson, right? So we backed off making picks, and we didn't put him in. And so when he committed, it said 90% Clemson. By the time he committed, Jeffrey, you and I actually already did know. We found out really the night before, but we were sworn not to say anything. At that point, we're not going to ruin it. We're not going to put in picks. But I think you and I both kind of wish we would put in a pick a couple weeks earlier, right? And so it kind of screws up the algorithm if you don't. So for the algorithm to work, we got to put in picks on a lot of guys, and we can change them. But it's just the way it's got to work. So from a business standpoint, it makes sense. But also, look, if you feel good about a guy, you felt good about some. You've been all over the Collins kid. How do you pronounce his first name?
Martavius.
Yes.
And, the tight end from Rome, Georgia. I mean, we've been saying for weeks, and you specifically, hey, you feel really good about Auburn's changes. So why not just put in a pick? And it's good for us. It's good for the company. And a lot of kids have told us in the past, I know I'm going on and on as usual, but, oh, please don't put in a pick. But most kids get it.
I know.
When picks go in, guess what? That means all of a sudden I'm going to get more eyes on me. All right? The days of everything being secretive and all that, I mean, you're kind of living in the past. I mean, if truly what you want is attention, and in this NIL age, you really should want attention, because the more people who know who you are and follow you, the more NIL money you're going to command. You know, you should like the thing like the crystal ball at 24/7 and the On-3 recruiting prediction machine. So I love it. I thought it was great. I mean, there was one person on our board who said it felt a little contrived. Well, yeah, it was.
Sure.
But we still went with our guts. And so, Jeffrey, that's a long answer to say I agree with you.
And I thought you made a fantastic point, man. That algorithm, I did a story on Kevin Riley just earlier today. This is Thursday, March the 9th. Did a story on Kevin Riley. Looked at his On-3 RPM. Louisville.
Yeah.
Is leading.
Right.
And so even if you go look at Walker White right now, it's 96% Clemson, even though he's done deal to Auburn. So I think Keith made a fantastic point. If you want this to work, this On-3 RPM, and we all do, we all do. I love it. But in order for it to work, it can't just be based off of what visits, and that's what most of it is, because some of those schools don't log visits. So
Yeah.
He may have been to Auburn 3 times and, only one's been logged and all of his visits to Alabama has been logged. Therefore, Alabama leads in the RPM. So there's a lot that goes into this algorithm, but the main thing is predictions. So let's get it going. I mean, and when you look at it through those eyes, and I like the RPM because you can change it. Hey, I feel good about Auburn's chances right now with Martavius Collins. 2 weeks from now, I find out that they're going to get Colton Heinrich and they're going to take Landon Thomas from Georgia. Then I want to be able to go back in there and say, no. My pick has changed. The thing with that is it's the difference between On 3 and Rivals. Back when we were putting in Futurecast and Rivals, the Crystal Ball, they're keeping score. I don't know that there's a score on the On 3 network. I don't know. So it makes it a little bit easier for me to go, I don't mind changing this pick. This is where I feel good about right now. So when people go to this kid's page, the buzz right now is around Auburn.
Jhead's dying to talk. I'm going to let him talk.
Go ahead.
I talk to people. Look, a lot of the people at On 3 I worked with at 24/7, and Jeffrey, a lot of the people at On 3 you work with at Rival. So we talk to people, and one of the guys that's in our boss's inner circle is always telling me, man, y'all, everybody, team side guys, put in predictions. Put your what out there. Do it. I mean, we're at the end of the day, we're running a business. People are paying. You know what they're paying for? They're not paying for my updates and Jhead's updates and Jeffrey's updates. They're paying for what's in Jeffrey's head. He's the expert. They want to know what he thinks. And if we're just writing updates on kids, we're kind of doing the readers a disservice. And we all sort of can get lazy just cranking out updates and all that. We're all guilty of that, right? I mean, that's part of the job, and it's an important part of the job. But at the end of the day, people want to know, is my team getting this guy, or does my team have a shot? And so, Jeffrey, we're going to get some wrong, but that's what people are. They want to know what we think. They're working their asses off every day, and this is what we're doing. They want to know what we're coming up with here. Okay.
The people, the good guys are that they understand the business. They've been in this. They've been following recruiting, so they know that me putting in a pick for Joseph Phillips yesterday, which it's not a big deal. That's where I feel like he's going to right now. The buzz right now is around Auburn, and it should reflect that on his profile page. He goes to Georgia, he goes to Alabama over the summer, and a lot of the buzz is coming out of those two schools. And I should be able to go in there and say, hey, and not go, oh God, you're wrong again. Oh my God. Yeah.
And also, Jeffrey, if he takes visits to Georgia 4 straight weekends, and those visits are correctly logged on his profile, it will then pump right into that. I don't know what the right word is. Go right into that algorithm, and it'll spit out a new percentage, and then Georgia would probably be in front. Right. So I know nobody wants to hear Georgia. Change that to Wofford. Yeah. And but no, I mean it was fun. It was a fun day. Jhead,
give us a fan's perspective.
We've held Jhead back long enough.
No, you're good. And I think from a fan's perspective, the way people should probably look at this. All right, when a kid makes a commitment, what does that mean at this point? It means that they're favoring that school at the time. It is absolutely irrelevant until signing day. Well, why should analysts or people that follow recruiting for team sites be any different? They should be able to log a prediction of this is where the kid is leaning at the time. And people should always view it from that prism. Nothing is final till you get to National Signing Day. So for us to be able to read the room, it's a skill set. And we're testing ourselves just as much as these coaches are in being able to follow and read a recruitment. This is what we're doing to try to provide you some insight into how a recruiting process is laying out. Now, do we always have all the pieces? Absolutely not. And I assure you there are things that are moving on behind the scenes that change on a daily basis, which is why it's hard to be 100% accurate. But I'm with you guys. Every player that got a pick logged for them, I like the buzz around them as it pertains to Auburn right now. Now, does that mean that I think each and every one of these kids is going to sign with Auburn? Probably not. But in the general sense right now, I think we can all collectively exhale, take a breath, and say, you know what? The buzz with these kids is positive. Regardless of how it turns out in 2 weeks from now or 2 months from now or, 6 months from now, right now the feeling is, hey, we've got an absolute shot, and it should be reflected as such in the kids' RPM. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Keith.
Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, that was it.
It's getting a little more difficult. I'm sure Jeffrey would agree. Now we always had the kid, the mom, the dad, Uncle Fred, Aunt Phil. You always had to worry about all these factors. And now you've got this whole NIL factor out there as well. So it's getting a little bit more difficult, but I think people are generally, as long as they're not blindsided if the kid doesn't go to the school you pick. No, so, okay, I've got in a pick for a kid to go to Auburn, and out of the blue, he commits to Tennessee. Well, if we haven't, if we have done our jobs well and reminded them, hey, keep an eye on this team, then they're okay. Look, they weren't right on the pick, but at least they said all along this was the other team to watch. Sometimes it's right for the kid, and so it's when they're totally blindsided that they rightfully so. Hey, I'm paying a bunch of money. I thought that you guys were experts, but I think this algorithm, if again follow the visits, we say intel. Jeffrey and I talk to people, college coaches, other people, and Jhead, you do too, and. Ideally, it should lead the horse to water, right? We hope.
Yes. And I would say, think of it from like a coaching search perspective. If you thought the entire time you were getting Lane Kiffin and we had never said anything about Hugh Freeze being in the mix at all, and all of a sudden you ended up with Hugh Freeze, there would be people that would be irate, right? But that's not how the coverage went. It went, okay, we've had conversations with Lane Kiffin. We think we're down the road there, but watch out for Hugh Freeze. And so when Hugh Freeze emerged as the guy to watch, people were prepared for that. I think that's what you guys do a phenomenal job of, is being prepared for that.
Credit to Jeffrey. He said all along, well, hold on. He said at the beginning, hey, it's Hugh Freeze till it's not Hugh Freeze. But then
wait, whoop, whoop, whoop.
But then and I followed you. But then it was kind of like, okay, now it's Lane Kiffin until it's not Lane Kiffin. And then once that ship sailed, we knew it was Freeze. So but yeah, it's and really Jeff was one of the first people to kind of to think that it would be Freeze. But no, I mean it's
let me give you some Zach in the back stats.
Let's get to the picks.
There we go.
As far as the RPM goes, I was talking about that it don't keep individual records. Zach confirmed that, but they keep site records. And according to Zach, now listen, we've only been in business a year and a half now, 18 months.
Yes.
And I didn't realize this. Now I will be doing a better job with my RPMs, with my predictions, and staying more on top of that. But Auburn Live is 74 out of 108 all time, which is 69%.
Well,
not 70.
I'm going to defend the site. I'm going to defend the site here, because one way to jack it up is jack up your numbers is to right before a guy commits, change it.
Yeah.
Change it like 2 hours. Oh, we found out this guy. Well, you were wrong the whole way through. And a lot of times, I don't know about you, historically, I've kind of bit the pill and just
Me
said,
too.
I wasn't right.
That's not right. Right.
Now, a lot of people don't do that. Okay.
Right.
And then the other thing is that, what was I going to say here?
5 for 8. And it says as a site, we're 5 for 8 in the 2024 class. Zach, do you have any idea what the 3 misses were?
Well, Walker White. We didn't have a pick on Walker White.
Okay.
That's not one.
I would bet there was a pick made for the left-handed quarterback out of Georgia.
Oh, Aaron Nolan, somebody may have put it.
I would bet somebody probably logged
committed
him.
So
no.
So he can't be wrong yet, right?
That's true. That's true.
Well, I would say, I'm just spitballing, I would say at least half of my misses and Jeffrey's misses, and we talked about this the other day, Jhead, you'll agree with this. Half of our misses, look, we're going to be wrong. Don't get me wrong, but half of our misses
Sterling Dixon
at least are when a guy is trending to Auburn like this time of year, but by August he's not even on Auburn's board. They've had 50 other guys I don't want to name any names, but skyrocket right above the guy, and so you forget about him.
Right.
You forget about him because in March you thought, okay, this guy's absolutely going to Auburn. He wants to be. Actually, there was a JUCO receiver a couple years ago, a JUCO DB, and he was absolutely going to Auburn. He was going to commit. Well, they didn't take him. Well, we're all stuck there with picks on Auburn.
Brian George.
Yeah,
George.
Then you forget about the guy. And 5 months later, when he signs with Kansas State, you're like, oh my God, where did this come from? And you totally forget about it. So you actually have to. That's the bulk of the misses right there. There's going to be toss-ups. Auburn, Alabama. Hey, you feel good about Tony Mitchell? I missed Tony Mitchell. I put in a pick at the end, I know a few people thought that's why he didn't go to Auburn, because I put in a pick for Auburn, but generally, I didn't realize I was that powerful. But Nick Saban couldn't point me out of a lineup, okay? But apparently, but anyway, it's we just forget. We just forget about a guy, and we move on, and they move on, and Auburn moves on. Actually, that should be the first part. Auburn moves on. So anyway,
Hey, well, after the On3 RPM day, the Auburn Live staff logged predictions for Egan Boyer, the North Carolina offensive tackle, Martavius Collins, the 4-star defensive end from Rome, Georgia. I put in the Joseph Phillips. I joined Keith and Cole on the Joseph Phillips, the 4-star linebacker from Tuskegee. I think you and Cole both are now on Jamarian Burnett. Keith,
if I put
who else did you do?
I did Cam Coleman
and DeMarcus Riddick. Those were the two.
DeMarcus Riddick. We could speak for him, but you want to? Sorry, Jeffrey, I cut you off.
No, that was it. So we had Egan Boyer, Martavius Collins, Joseph Phillips. Keith had Cameron Coleman, DeMarcus Riddick, and Martavius Collins.
I believe so. That's correct. Yep.
Cole he had already done Jamarian Burnett. He'd already done Joseph Phillips. Cole did DeMarcus Riddick.
Yes.
And he threw in one on Collins too.
Did one on Collins too. And I wouldn't argue with any of them.
So we all think that Martavius Collins, we're all in agreement that we think that's a 4-star tight end at Rome, Georgia.
Yes.
We all think he's trending, former Alabama commit. And as Jeffrey points out all the time, you don't decommit from Alabama. Now, was it their choice? Was it his choice? I don't know, but he's not committed there anymore. And it came right after he visited Auburn. We know Auburn wants him. We know Auburn's going to take 2 tight ends. At least we think Auburn wants him. There's always some, hey, you may like a guy one day, but then you get a call from a 5-star tight end in California. Oh, hey, let's slow down. I'm taking this guy. So there's always some element of that. I think Cam Coleman was a pick that was sort of risky. You know what I mean? Because we know he's high on Auburn. That's the 5-star receiver at Phoenix City Central. We know he's high on Auburn's board, real high. We know they're high on his board. But he hasn't been there yet this year. He's going to, but he hadn't been there yet this year. Still getting to know these coaches. And also, when you look at the list of people,
D'Angelo Barber.
D'Angelo Barber, the linebacker, was Cole's other pick. And that's a good one. We don't know where he sits on the linebacker board. So you're kind of, it's tricky. But Cam Coleman, the X factor here is, man, everybody in the world's recruiting that guy. So I feel like as of today, you put a shotgun to my head, I had to make a call. I'd say Auburn, but it was tough. But you know what? It forced us to think. It forced us to write content where, hey, watch out for this team and watch out for that team. And, but that would be the one that I'm most concerned about of my picks. Jeffrey, did you have one that you're like?
I played it pretty conservative. And you talked about recruits getting, upset or whatever. I actually reached out to Martavius Collins. I reached out to Egan Boyer, and I was like, hey, man, listen, I'm going to put in a pick for you to Auburn. I don't know where you're going. This is just me reading tea leaves. And I think Egan's response to me was, dude, that's about as good as guess as you can get. I don't know where I'm going. There's still a long way to go. And this was his exact quote. There's still a long way to go, but that's as good a guess as any.
And that's one where I don't know where and I'm not knocking your pick. I think I almost made the same one. You probably know more than me. You've got a lot of great offensive line intel the last few years. I don't necessarily know where he fits on the board. And we keep talking about potential surprise visitors. Are there going to be some O-tackle surprises? And do they have a shot with 5-star Jonathan Daniels? How many are they going to take? So you're thinking about, okay, he loves Auburn. He's already been twice. He's going back for an official visit. We think he's fairly high on Auburn's board because they've already set up an official visit with him. But I don't know where he sits on the board. So it's like, man, it's so hard to like. And
I will say this, Keith, on all of my picks yesterday, Egan Boyer, Martavius Collins, and Joseph Phillips, I ran those 3 names by 2 different sources.
Yeah.
Because the first thing I wanted to know before making these picks are these guys takes right now?
Yep.
Are they takes? And 2 different sources told me on all 3, yes.
Well, then I can't argue with any of them. I wasn't arguing with any of them anyway.
No. Hey, guess what?
About Boyer,
5-star from Arizona calls tomorrow.
Yeah.
Things
maybe
can
they're
happen.
not take. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But as it stood on Wednesday on RPM day, those 3 guys were takes. I felt like Auburn's the team to beat for all 3 of them. I played it in my mind. I played it fairly conservative. I loved you going out on a limb with Cam Coleman.
Yeah.
I feel the same way.
Out on a limb.
I feel the same way, but I'm gonna let you get out there. Hey, listen, you're gonna hero.
Here's why I like your Boyer pick. because let's just suppose he's in their top 12 of offensive tackles. I don't know where he is. I don't know whether he's
Right.
2, 4, 6, top 12. I think they got to sign at least 3. They'll probably have to get another guy or 2 out of the portal next year at tackle. But let's just suppose you're going to take 3. You better start getting some on board. Okay. You don't want to wait too long and end up with nothing. We've seen that happen at offensive tackle the last 6 years. Okay. And so that's a guy, to me, if he wants to commit, I mean, geez, if it doesn't work out later, if it gets worse or whatever, you can always maybe have a parting of the ways with him.
Sure.
But I don't know. I don't know how you feel about that.
And it increases your margin for error to be able to target some higher profile. If you know you have this one in the back, if you can bank on this is our floor in the class.
That's your floor. That's exactly right.
You know what I mean? We can build from there and take swings on some guys. So you're not in the situation that, and I hate using the name, but that Gus found himself in so many different times where he never took a floor piece and was just swinging at the ceiling the entire way. And then when you circle back to the floor, wasn't there anymore, brother. They were committed elsewhere.
Yeah, the bottom had fallen out.
Well,
exactly.
Or their floor would be the low-hanging. I hate to say this about any kid. All these guys would beat our asses, okay? And I mean, like,
100%.
These offensive linemen that we've been kind of poking at the last few years would just absolutely just crush Jeff's and my heads like coconuts, okay, or oranges. And so, but I do feel like there was an element of some low-hanging fruit in a sense, like, when you see who you had to beat to land guys, there were some of the guys they took in the last 5 years of the offensive line. While they should have circled, there were guys that ended up at other schools that they could have taken early, but then some of the guys they did take early were, who did you beat to get them? I mean, just really not much.
Clay Whedon is a perfect example of a guy, Clay Whedon, who Gus wouldn't take early and then try to circle back and wouldn't be able to get, and he ended up going to Michigan State. That's the kind of guys that Gus missed out on.
And if he doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. But you needed bodies, and I mean, and the portal can save you. I personally, and I've said this before, Jhead, I think you agree. I think they're going to probably have to take another 2-3 offensive linemen out of the portal next year too. And then I think after that, it might just be 1 or 2 here or there.
By then, you've got this class and the next class.
Yeah. Because you're still layering the depth chart right now because of so many different holes that you had. I mean, look, taking 9 guys in one class is never ideal. 2 of those were 6-year guys who have no more eligibility left. You know what I mean? You've got Avery Jones and the tackle from Western Kentucky, Gunnar Britton, both of which are out of eligibility. Who knows if you have any attrition? So I absolutely can see you taking at least 2 more linemen out of the portal and probably 4 out of high school next year to get that depth chart to where you want it to be from a numbers perspective. Because where Auburn's having to recruit, yes, we're having to recruit quality on the offensive line, but you're also having to recruit from a numbers standpoint just to get it to where it needs to be in that 16 to 18 range, which is where most coaches feel comfortable from having enough offensive line depth in a room should you have injuries throughout the season.
I love the Avery Jones pickup because now you can, with Braden Joyner and Connor
Lou.
One of those guys would be ready in year 2 to move right into that spot,
Speaking of predictions, we logged ours on Wednesday. Jhead, you came in on the corner of the Auburn Live message board, I believe on Tuesday. You had five guys.
It was actually February 28th. So I put
did that get bumped?
Yes.
That was bumped. An old post?
That was an old post.
Shit, my bad, dude.
No, you're good, brother.
Well, that explains. So let me take real quick. So yesterday I get a notification and it says Cam Coleman, I'll be visiting Auburn today. And I'm like, oh my God, trying to look for babysitters, I got to run up there, get Cam Coleman. And then I realized it was my October 2022. So I have a tendency to not pay attention to the dates. So my bad.
No, you're good, brother. So I put this in probably about a week or so ago, just kind of my update as to how I feel, similar to what you guys just did with RPM Day. But these are my feelings on the direction of the way these recruitments are taking place right now, and kind of my attempt to read the tea leaves and project who I think could be the next 5 commits in this class. Now, I'm going to take a step back from that and say I no longer feel like they're going to be the next 5, but I do feel good about the direction of the way these recruitments are trending for Auburn. I don't know who's going to be next, but I do think that each one of these 5 that I projected has a chance to be in Auburn's class at some point. And so we'll start with the first one, and that was Jamarian Fat Burnett. Now, Do I think he is the number one running back on Auburn's board right now? No, I don't. I honestly don't believe that. Do I think that he has a committable offer to Auburn right now? I very much do. Do I think Auburn is pushing for him? I don't. I think they're going to let this recruitment play out some. I think they're going to let the kid take his time and make the decision that he wants to make. He has a committable offer. If he wants in, great. But if that spot happens to fill before he gets ready to commit, well, he may not have a committable offer at that point. But as of now, I would still project him to this class. I think Cadillac has a fantastic relationship with him. I think he's done a great job there. And as Cole has said, I don't even truly know who the number 2 candidate is if it's not Auburn. So that's number 1 on my board.
That kind of that's something that Keith doesn't like, right? Keith, who did you beat? If Jamari and Fat Burnett, we don't even know who number 2 is.
And by the way, we may have a number 2. I don't know. FSU may be somebody to watch. I think him and his teammate. I don't know if they could have already done it in the last couple of days. Actually, is FSU in spring break? I don't know. Landon Marshall, the defensive lineman, and Fat Burnett, the running back, are apparently going to visit FSU soon. So maybe look at their location, look where FSU is located. That would make sense. Also, we know FSU, they need defensive linemen just like everybody does, but they're in the ACC. It's harder to. They ain't beating out Georgia and Alabama for defensive linemen. So Landon Marshall doesn't have like the Auburn type offers. Still a very good player. That might be more attainable for FSU. It's not a knock on FSU, but the reality of it is it's a little more difficult for them to get defensive linemen of the highest level. So maybe FSU could be a number 2. But Jeffrey, your point being, who did you beat to land a kid?
Yeah.
If you're beating God, you hate to just throw out programs, but if you're beating Virginia, and by the way, Tony Elliott's a great guy, the head coach, but if you're beating Virginia, I mean, come on. But if you're beating Clemson, Ohio State, FSU, Tennessee, which Auburn beat all those guys in the last 4 months for guys, that means something. So that's what Jeff means.
Okay, my bad, Jhead.
No, you're good. And that's actually good intel, Keith, and that's a good matchup for us because FSU is also taking 2 running backs in this class. I think they already have Cameron Davis committed out of South Georgia. So you wouldn't, by Auburn taking 2 backs in this class, that wouldn't necessarily hurt you with Fat Burnett from that factor. Because some guys do just want to be the only one.
I don't know how hard they're pushing. I'll find out.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Number 2 on my list, Joseph Phillips. I love this pick. I think he's an Auburn-type kid. I think they have prioritized him from the very beginning. He's not going to commit early. We know that now. We thought there was a time that he was going to commit in March. He's going to take some visits, and I think he should. But when it gets down to it and you're competing against Texas A&M and Tennessee and Clemson and Georgia and Alabama for this kid, I think the relationship that Cornell Williams has and the relationship that Josh Aldridge has with this kid is going to play out in the end. I think he wants to be close to home, and there's nowhere closer to home for Tuskegee, Alabama than Auburn, Alabama.
Can I add one thing?
Go ahead.
There is one thing and Jeffrey's probably noticed this. Every time Jeffrey or I tweet about the kid, Ron Roberts likes that tweet. He ain't liking all our tweets,
So, and that's going to be his position coach if he were to come to Auburn because he's being recruited as a jack linebacker. So, really, really great kid, better player, and I love that pick for Auburn right now. The next one is in agreement with every one of you guys, Martavius Collins. I heard about 3 weeks back behind the scenes that this was really starting to kind of trend in an Auburn direction. I think that he sees the need in this class. They're selling him as a diverse tight end piece, a hybrid piece that can play detached, that can play on the line of scrimmage, that can play in the backfield. I think he likes that. He's looking for a landing spot after decommitting from Alabama, whether that was a mutual parting of ways or what have you. But I think he's a value piece. Auburn wants to get into South Georgia. Rome is a great school to pick up a prospect from, and he's a really good athlete in and of himself. The next one is D'Angelo Barber. This is more of a read on the linebacker recruiting board to me. I think just like an offensive tackle with Egan Boyer, I think D'Angelo Barber is a floor piece that you take right now that has an immense ceiling. I really love this kid. I love the way he plays. Thanks, Keith. I appreciate that. But I love the way he plays. He plays the game the right way. He's an inside linebacker that can play Will or Mike. Not a huge guy, but great sideline to sideline speed and the ability to convert speed to power and get downhill and play the run extremely well. So D'Angelo Barber's a guy to me. I would take him if it were tomorrow. But you're going to be competing for some big time schools for him. I think Louisville's in the mix. I think the Mississippi schools are in the mix. Alabama has offered. Georgia, I think, has offered now. So there's some stiff competition for D'Angelo Barber.
Where's he from?
To get. Clay Chalkable.
Home to several dudes.
Yeah,
correct. And that's another one. If you're looking to get into a school right now, and he's a great kid from what I mean.
He's awesome.
Wants to be a nurse, I think, if I remember correctly.
Awesome kid.
So you couldn't go wrong by picking up a guy like that. And in today's world, with the NIL world, where character does mean something, and you've heard Hugh Freeze talk about how do we keep NIL from hurting us in the locker room with guys being jealous and things. Well, how do you start mitigating that? By taking character kids that aren't so worried about NIL dollars and are worried about production on the field first and then making their money.
Jeffrey, if this guy's going to be a nurse, you and I better write some nice things about him. He might be changing our diapers in 15 years.
Jhead, he would be in my almost on deck as far as RPMs goes.
Yeah.
He's on deck for me.
And last but not least, I went out on a limb like Keith, and I put Cam Coleman because I think you've got to have him. I think this is one.
Yeah.
Auburn needs to close a big-bodied wide receiver that has high-end potential in this class. I think the matchups right now between, for him and Perry Thompson and a couple of the kids down there in South Florida.
Alabama.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
The way this lays out, I would favor us of all those teams with the best odds to land Cam Coleman. Now, I even think that Clemson is probably going to be the stiffest competition for him down the stretch. I think Dabo Swinney has the best relationship there with people that matter in that area. They've recruited that school extremely well. But something about Hugh Freeze and the way he's going to utilize wide receivers in this offense, the need and the emphasis they're going to put on recruiting this position, I think Marcus Davis is going to stamp his mark with this one. This is going to be a guy that he's going to land, and he's going to be able to point to this one moving forward. And to give you guys a player comp, I've been watching a lot of tape lately as far as Cam Coleman goes. I'd compare him to Van Jefferson, a guy that Hugh Freeze landed at Ole Miss, that played at Ole Miss and at Florida, and has had a pretty good pro career for the the Los Angeles Rams.
Whoa.
Yeah. I'm showing my age there. The Los Angeles Rams. But kind of a wiry frame, but 6'2", 6'3", can really go up and make plays in phase. But a guy with really strong hands and just that catch radius that Hugh Freeze is looking for.
Apparently, he's just tested off the charts too. I mean, 40-inch vertical. I mean, I tell you, he's my favorite interview in the class too. I mean, he talks faster than I do, so it's sometimes hard to keep up. But he is just pleasant. Just a pleasant dude. In fact, Jeffrey, as we're doing this, I don't want to we ought to try to get him on one of these shows.
Yeah.
He is as likable. And I haven't talked to Joseph Phillips, but how y'all talk about Joseph Phillips and D'Angelo Barber, same thing. But yeah, I mean, Jhead, you don't have to have this guy. Hugh Freeze will be fine, but you sure as hell want this guy. And you want him bad, man. You want him bad, man. And it just sends a message. You've already got one big win over Clemson. Get another one. Stop that flood of guys from Phoenix City Central going away. I mean, it was Justin Ross who, Auburn couldn't land, even though he visited Auburn 100 times.
Mm-hmm.
EJ Williams, another talented receiver. Now, I don't think EJ really has done a ton in college, right? And then last year you had Carmelo English committed, and then he wasn't committed. And Jeffrey, I don't want to give too much away, but there was chatter that he had some academic issues, and the guy signed with Michigan. Last time I checked, Michigan wasn't signing guys with academic issues.
Probably stiffer requirements to get into Michigan than there is to Auburn.
One would think.
So something happened, right? And but the bottom line is he didn't end up at Auburn, and that's really the only.
Let's see if he reports in the summer.
Well, that's true. So that's the part that's relevant. He didn't. So this guy could change a lot of things. I think Deron Reed getting that defensive lineman out of Columbus last year was significant.
Yes.
Start changing that narrative fast. You know what I mean? Auburn's kind of hot right now. There's some buzz. The Athletic put Hugh Freeze on a list of top coaches today. I mean, it's something that Auburn can put out there and send to kids. Hey, you may not know a ton about Hugh, but look, here's who does. And there's just such positive. And Walker White said it best when I talked to him 4 or 5 weeks ago. There's just a lot of positive momentum with Auburn right now. But you got to get guys like this. You gotta send a message. Jeffrey, you said it yourself. You beating the big boys. You'd be beating all the big boys for this guy. All of them. Every one of them. From
EJ Williams. I'm sorry. From
Go
Ohio
ahead.
State. Jay had made a good point. EJ Williams is now transferred to Indiana, home of general manager.
Yes,
Stephen
Ruzick.
Stephen Ruzick,
Yeah.
man.
But
Indiana, he's already got Indiana in the headlines. I don't know if y'all saw that.
I know the head coach there, and he's a fantastic guy. And he was almost Auburn's defensive coordinator at once.
Who is
Tom Allen?
Oh, yeah.
He was this close to being Auburn's defensive coordinator, I think. I don't know. And then I think the USF had a bad bowl game, and Gus got skittish, right? Wasn't that? Didn't they give up 60 in a bowl game?
Yes.
I don't think Gus got skittish. I think people that were, helping make that hire.
Backing it.
Yeah.
It all was
Lost a lot of support.
Yeah.
Let's we've talked about Burnett. We've mentioned Kevin Riley.
Yes.
Let's look at some running backs this week. The running back board. We think Auburn's going to take 2. We've heard some names. There's some familiar names. Obviously, Jamarian Fat Burnett being one of them. I'm almost tired of hearing his name, but he's certainly on there. But
right.
I'm intrigued with Kevin Riley, the 4-star running back from Tuscaloosa County. I believe his mother is employed at the university.
Correct.
I have not confirmed that, but I've seen it mentioned several times. Who else? We know Daniel Hill from Mississippi is a stud. The kid Cole mentioned as a guy to watch for. I think he's from South Alabama.
Yes, Ronnie Royal. I think it's Ronnie Royal.
Yes, the third, Ronnie Royal the third. So, Jhead, talk to us about your running back board. Where do you have it right now? Who are some guys you're tracking?
So right now, I've got it as 5 names to know, and Ronnie Royal is an honorable mention along with Brandon Hood. Those guys are at the bottom of my list of guys that I'm kind of watching that are athletes / running backs. But number 1 on my list, and I actually think he may be number 1 on Auburn's list, is Kevin Riley. Now, for those that are familiar with SEC ball and in the early 2000s, when you watch this kid's tape, he looks a lot like Jarius Norwood from Mississippi State, who went on to play for the Atlanta Falcons. Around 6 foot, just under 200 pounds, but a very physical runner. Has the ability to make reads blocks extremely well, runs with good power, probably low 4.5s, high 4.4 speed. So he's got the ability to hit the home run. Really a complete back, catches the ball very cleanly out of the backfield. They don't highlight him a lot doing that or use him a lot, but when he does, he excels at it. So a really good fit for a Philip Montgomery, Hugh Freeze offense as far as the kind of back you're looking for, a very complete back. But really like the explosion that he has. Number 2, Daniel Hill. You just talked about him. He's a freak show. He's a guy that can play linebacker. He's a guy that can play wide receiver. He can play running back. He can do a multitude of things for you. I have a really high grade on him. I'm a fan of his game. Competition stiff. I think right now he's currently, as far as RPM day goes, is now projected to the University of Alabama. Ole Miss is going to be in that for any Mississippi prospect. Ole Miss and Mississippi State are going to be in the mix there. LSU, Tennessee, Georgia, and Auburn all are in the mix for him. The next name is Jamarian Fat Burnett. We don't need to talk about that one anymore. We've digested that one enough. The next name to me is a guy that visited for the junior day, and that's Kayan Daniels. A guy that probably wanted a little bit more individual time than he had the opportunity to get, but I think he's going to be coming back for a spring practice, if I remember correctly, and a guy that will get the opportunity to get that one-on-one time with Cadillac Williams, which is what he wanted. Unfortunately, Cadillac was sick for that junior day, so he couldn't be there, but he'll get a chance to come back on campus, get the full exposure being in the running back room, see how Carnell coaches, and we'll be able to catch up with him there. But I like him as a system fit. And I think as a guy that could be potentially a number 2 guy in this class, I like that one. And then the last name is Chris Davis, who I think was the MVP at the Atlanta Under Armour camp for the running back room. He's a lighter back at around 180, but really excels in the passing game. I think he's got a lot of explosion as well, and somebody that could be that home run piece for you, and probably a perfect complementary back, a change of pace back. And then you've obviously got Brandon Hood and Ronnie Royal that I'm also watching. But those are 5 to 7 names I think that you should, if you're an Auburn fan, you should be tracking as far as our running back recruiting is concerned.
Who was number 5?
Chris Davis.
Oh man,
not kick 6 Chris Davis, but
no, I was going back and forth with him. He has yet to set up a visit to Auburn, but he is planning to. The Kanan Daniels that's the kid from West Point.
Yes.
West Point, Mississippi.
Yes, that's him.
Okay. Is he the one who I interviewed somebody after that big junior day? We interviewed a lot, but there was one dude who was like, who was that guy who said
that was him? He was a little upset. Yeah, it was him. He was kind of like, hey, there were so many kids here. It was hard for me to kind of get the opportunity, and then Cadillac wasn't there, so it was just a little bit disappointing. But he did like it, and he is coming back for a spring practice, is my understanding. So we'll see what he has to say coming out of that. I think I like him better as a projection than maybe what he's had to say to this point. But we'll see kind of how that shakes out after he comes back.
They're basically in my top right now. That's what he said after that junior day visit.
Yep.
Okay. Good to know. I'll be checking up on him. Brandon Hood, man, I always forget about him.
Love that kid. Now, he sustained an injury his junior year. I think he tore his ACL after about 5 or 6 games into the season, which is why a lot of teams haven't offered to this point. I know Penn State's seen as the RPM favorite, and they do have an offer out to him. I think if he had been able to play his full junior year, he'd have an Auburn offer at this point. But people kind of want to see how he's going to perform coming off the injury before they go all in.
Fair enough. Good stuff, Jhead. Hey, anyhow about you this week?
Oh, let's see.
I have a few, Keith.
Go ahead.
You I have one for you.
Oh God.
I have a how about you too? Obliterati. And on Keith's post about Cam Coleman prediction,
I was afraid to go through and read those. By the way,
it was great. He had a GIF, the GIF of the guy who's standing back, and his buddies are all like, "Oh my god!"
Oh yeah,
It was Keith. He had your picture, and then he had Philip Marshall's. It was hilarious.
Well, hilarious. Is that the only one you got?
No, man.
I got 2.
Okay.
I got 2. So the first one is for Mace Himdu, who's been all over basketball transfer portal right now. I mean, I think he's putting up a new name every day. Some of these guys will actually get looked at, some of them won't. But I love the enthusiasm that he has for basketball recruiting. So Mace Himdu gets one for me. And the second one is for not a member of this site, but for Bruce Pearl and the boys for getting that big win against Tennessee. It's always good for me. It's good for my heart to see regular season Rick lose one in Neville Arena. But to see them get that 20th win was big. It cemented them in the NCAA tournament. And to have a team, look, we went through the Lebo years to the Barbie years, and even the tail end of Cliff, where we didn't even sniff the postseason, to now being in the Bruce Pearl era, and you've gone to 4 or 5 NCAA tournaments now.
Complaining about a 20-win season.
A bad year is now a 20-win season. That's a hell of when you raise the floor like that. Wow.
Exactly. That shows you what he's been able to do at Auburn, to a team that couldn't sniff the postseason for about 12 years. And the best recruit that we had during that time period was Cavante Barber. Good player, but you're talking top 75-ish, Jeffrey, maybe, to where you're landing guys that are in the top 10, in Jabari Smith, top, 20, whatever, what have you. So
I think he's had 2 seasons where he didn't even lose 10 games. And even Sonny Smith's team that made the Elite Eight still lost like 11 or 12 games.
Correct.
So it's fascinating. I do have, is that it, Jhead? Your how bad?
That's it for me. Yeah, those are my highlights.
I got one, and it's going to get the whole board stacked against me. It's not Murph.
It's Rice, isn't it? It's Rice.
You damn right it is. Rice puts up. Nobody's had to eat more of a SHIT burger on our board than that guy. Okay, he takes it. He comes back for seconds. He just loves it.
I
mean, He's a good sport, and that's really what it's all about. I mean, you don't want the board to be like this place where people are ripping you and you storm out of here. Remember on The Real World when it first came out on MTV, you racist, and they'd run out of the room crying and all that stuff. And you don't want it to be like that. You want it to be people going back and forth. This guy takes a lot of guff from everybody on the board, including us, and he always smiles about it. He always laughs at himself, and so I always tip the hat to somebody who can kind of just not take themselves too seriously. You know what I mean?
Let's go Rice squared because of our shared hatred for Jimbo Fisher and his punchable face.
And also, you guys didn't ask about my background. Now, people listening on the podcast can't see. That is Pebble Beach, hole 6. And Jeff, I know you love. By the way, apparently Jeff's a pretty good golfer. That even practicing can get out there because he's a natural. But so right over my left shoulder, right here, that's the fairway. That's where you want to hit your drive. Up to the green.
Is it?
Well, that's where you'd like to hit it. I was over where those bunkers are. I was left of the bunkers. But anyway.
You pull?
But I sometimes I do. I do when the Pacific Ocean's to the right of the fairway.
Yeah, dude, I'm scuba diving, dude.
Well, so you guys know.
No, actually, I'm aiming at the other fairway on the left, so it'll end up
there. You go. So you need that nice hook back into it.
You see those little bodies out there, people who can see. We're shooting video here along with the podcast. Your tee shot in the fairway to the green is up 4 flights. It's a significant 4 flights from where those little bodies are out there in the fairway up to the green. It's a significant elevation shift, and I've walked it a few times, and it'll wear you out. But anyway, that's it. That's all I got. Rice.
Listen, Rice DP is a first ballot Auburn Sports Message Board Hall of Famer.
Right? Oh, he's
on every site. He's making the Hall of Fames on every board. The guy can rotate through boards. Jhead, you're pretty good at this too, by the way. But this guy can. He must have like multiple monitors up. He's probably got the wrist guards to keep from getting what do you call it?
Carpal tunnel syndrome.
Yeah.
I mean, does it? Maybe his mom delivers the meatloaf down to him in the basements to keep him nourished. I have no idea, but
dude. That's exactly what I was thinking. Meatloaf. I got some how about you, man. How about you to Jason from Priceville? How about you to Red Boy 33? How about you to Logan W. Adams? How about you to Obliterati again? Mm-hmm. I'll give one for Keith and one for me. What did he do? I told everybody I was going to win the bracket, the March Madness bracket, and I don't have my green screen this week. Anyways, you know these big ass hats that they're wearing now?
Yeah,
that is a huge hat. Anyways, yeah, it was funny. It was funny. Hey, how about you to Kevin Durant's Burner 2, not to be confused with Kevin Durant's Burners 1. And how about you to Chemo Sabe?
He's a good one.
Chemo Sabe, he is hilarious. Some dude posted, this guy's coming off like a kid, and he was like, yeah, maybe it's because he is a kid. So how about you to those fine fellas? Hey, listen, we're going to be back Sunday for the call-in show Sunday night. We'll have our full team ready for some phone calls. Looking forward to that. We're going to continue with our recruiting coverage, and then next week Auburn will kick back with spring practice on Monday. Start back with practice on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's going to be a lot of recruits in town over the next few weeks. We'll be all over it at Auburn Live on 3. Hey, if you're not a member to Auburn Live on 3, get signed up, man. Come join us. And also, if you're on YouTube right now, click that subscribe button, click that like button, hit those notifications so you'll get all the videos uploaded straight to your phone. And I hope you enjoy them. Hey, appreciate everybody. One more time for anybody looking for a house in or around Auburn, Opelika, Lee County, give old Jessica Andrews a call with the Talents Group, 334-704-4442, and tell her we sent you. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it, man. For Jhead, for Keith, for Zach in the back, I'm Jeffrey Lee, man. Y'all stay out of that left lane. See ya.